Hi. Welcome back to the Nikki Clarke Radio Show. The show is about conversations that matter, and I'm always excited to meet stellar individuals who are transforming lives one story at a time. And we have yet another amazing individual on the line. She is a professor at Centennial College and Humber College here in Ontario, teaching students about LinkedIn marketing tricks. And she also teaches some of what she's learned about business and owning a business. So I'm very excited to introduce Susan Cates to the show. How are you doing today, Susan?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
Excellent. Thank you so much for having the time to spend with us today. So I'll get right to it. And Susan, can you tell us a little bit about your background leading up to what you're doing today?
Oh, sure, absolutely. So I like to talk about my background in decades, which will kind of give you an idea of where I am.
Absolutely.
So for the first 10 years, I actually worked in the computer industry of all things. I was in the sales and marketing area and the computer industry, and realized pretty early on that was just not my calling in any way, but I stuck with it because I kept getting better and better jobs, and it was sort of what seemed to be on the forefront at that time. But then I kind of made the decision that it was time to make a change. And interestingly enough, I've always had a real passion for the retail industry. So and I seen this job posting, I remember a very long time ago, that said there is this thing called a marketing director in a shopping center. I'm like, I'd never heard of anything like that. Because, I just knew that you go into a store and shop. But,
right.
but I saw this posting, and I said, wow, that sounds like something I'd like to do. And sure enough, I started to apply, and I got very, very lucky because an opportunity came up in Toronto with what is like the best shopping center, location you could possibly have, which is Yorkdale. And I got very, very lucky and got into the industry. And so my role really was to do marketing and events in the shopping centers, which I did for 10 years. So I was, for 9 of those 10 years, I was actually an entrepreneur. I actually went in as an entrepreneur or freelancer, whichever way you want to call it, and did events in all the shopping centers in the Greater Toronto area, and had a lot of fun doing it. It's a definite 365-day a year kind of a job. Nobody might understand that, or maybe 364 because we were closed on Christmas. However, and what had happened was at that point, after 10 years of being in it, I sort of felt that my time had come to leave the industry, because as I like to say to people, I think I'm getting too old to try to figure out how Santa's going to arrive this year. So I sort of said, okay, time to move on to the next sort of chapter of my life. And so then I decided to start a cooking school, which I did out of my home, and then that morphed into a catering business, and that morphed into another event business, which I did yet for another about 7 or 8 years, maybe 10 in total, because once I sold the business, I still stayed on with the new owners that took over the business. So I was in the event social networking business for 10 years, still doing some catering and still doing some, I certainly was a special event business. There was lots of things that we were doing in the social networking area. And then when I sold the business, I said, I need to transition again. So I ended up realizing that I really needed to re-educate myself, because I just felt that I was kind of stale, and I needed to do something to figure out a way to get back into the marketplace.
Right.
And so I decided to go back to MBA school, which I did in 2009 and graduated in 2011, and then went on my next sort of journey, which was working in seniors residences, again as a director of sales and marketing. But really, my underlying passion at that point was really to go and start teaching. So it took me a couple of years to get a teaching opportunity. It's not something that you can do instantly, and I realize now exactly how you go about getting a teaching role. And so in 2012, through LinkedIn, interestingly enough, I did connect up with the dean back then at Centennial College and said I'd really like to teach, and one thing led to another, and a few months later I had my first teaching opportunity in the college level. So that's
wonderful.
That's my journey.
Oh, well, it's a brilliant journey, and thank you so much for kind of summarizing it. I know that there have been a lot of great beginnings, and then you've kind of had an epiphany, and you said, you know what, I think it's time to move on to the next level and do something else. And it takes a lot of courage to kind of make that reckoning and to make that kind of trajectory change. So it's pretty awesome. So tell me a little bit about, what you're doing right now. And I know that you have so much passion to inspire and motivate and educate businesses and students. But what else is part of your passion project? What else can people expect in what you do?
It's really interesting that you should ask that at this moment in time, because one of the things that I'm very, very passionate about is innovation and leadership. I'm very, very passionate about it. It's actually a new direction that I'm going to be going in the coming months. I'm actually yet again going to be going back to school to get a master's degree in that area. So. Wow. Yes, because I really am extremely passionate about it. I've always been, actually, as you can probably attest from my background. It was always, innovating maybe myself, but also innovating in the industries that I worked in. And so, but it's never been defined that way. And I think we are right now in a time and a place where innovation is necessary and mandatory and required. So I'm really, really passionate about that. I have innovative ideas, and I just want to, pursue that even more in various sectors, because I really think that now, there's going to be so much change coming forward once, bans are lifted and we're going to go back to what is going to be the new normal, that, people with innovative minds are going to be, definitely in the forefront and required to help out businesses. So that's really where my direction is going in the next for the next decade.
Fantastic. And Susan, can you offer like a message right now for us? We're all going through a global experience of a lot of challenges. What message of hope can you offer the listeners?
Well, my message would be never to give up. I think that's really the message. You can always pivot. You can always find some other way of doing things. I teach the event management students at Humber College, and my message to them is every problem has a solution. So, and especially in the event business, as you can imagine, you're dealing with momentary things that are going on, that are happening, and you have to make decisions very, very quickly. And there is no problem that can't be solved. And I think we're in the same state of mind right now, or same stage in business right now, where there is a solution to every problem. And I'm listening to people who are making some of these changes in reinventing themselves, reinventing their businesses. And I think that that's really the message that I would want to share, that, staying positive and finding new solutions is really the direction we need to go, and to never, ever give up, because there's always a way to accomplish what we want to accomplish.
Excellent. I love that. Pearls of wisdom. Thank you so much, Susan. And where can people find you on social media? Where can they connect with you?
Well, ideally, I like my LinkedIn profile, so it's Susan Cates MBA, which is my LinkedIn. I tend to. That's really what I use the most. I don't really use Facebook. I'm not a big Twitter person. I use Twitter for reaching out to organizations, but to really find me, that's really the best way to find me.
On LinkedIn. Okay.
On LinkedIn, yes, absolutely.
Okay. Wonderful, wonderful. Well, Susan, it's been such a pleasure learning about what you have done in the past and your wonderful aspirations for the present. And thank you so much for that hopeful message. You've been listening to the Nikki Clarke Radio Show with our very special guest, Susan Cates. So please reach out to her on LinkedIn, and I'm sure she will be able to inspire you with some more great news. Susan, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. Stay strong and stay safe.
You too.
You're more than welcome. Bye for now.
Bye-bye.